the phantom campsite. The dying embers of the campfire cast grotesque shadows that danced across the worn faces of my friends. Laughter, once light and carefree, now held an edge of forced merriment. We were lost. Hopelessly, utterly lost. It had been a foolhardy adventure from the start, a weekend backpacking trip into the uncharted territory of howling forest, fueled by youthful arrogance and a thirst for something untamed. The map, a faded relic unearthed from my grandfather's attic, promised a hidden lake, pristine and untouched. We, a group of 5, became captivated by the lure of the unknown. Now, as twilight deepened the oppressive silence of the woods, fear gnawed at our insides. We'd been trekking for hours, the map long since useless, the dense canopy swallowing the afternoon sun whole. By a stroke of desperate luck, we stumbled upon a clearing, a small, neglected campsite nestled amongst towering pines. It seemed like an answer to a prayer. Relief washed over me as we unpacked our gear. Olivia meticulously examined the site, finding an old fire pit encircled by blackened stones. Mike, ever the resourceful one, declared it perfect for a morale-boosting campfire. Emily, uncharacteristically reserved, kept glancing nervously at the thick undergrowth that rimmed the clearing. Tom, usually the voice of reason, was strangely quiet, his eyes flickering with an unsettling anxiety. We settled in for the night, the crackling fire casting a nervous warmth. As the first stars winked into existence, Mike regaled us with ghost stories, his usual gusto noticeably dampened. Olivia, ever the pragmatic one, scoffed, but I felt a shiver crawl down my spine with every chilling tale. The night was a symphony of unsettling sounds, the rustle of leaves in the unseen wind, the guttural hoot of an owl, the snap of a twig under an unseen weight. Sleep came in snatched moments, plagued by nightmares of twisting shadows and unseen eyes. Dawn arrived a pale, hesitant visitor. Exhaustion hung heavy in the air. We ate a meager breakfast, the silence punctuated only by the clinking of utensils. Tom, his face pale and drawn, spoke first. "We need to find a way out. We're running low on supplies." The rest of the day was a blur of frustration. We walked in circles, the forest seeming to mock our efforts. Landmarks vanished, paths reappeared, a chilling echo of our helplessness. The sun, once our guiding beacon, became a taunting presence, offering no direction in the endless canopy. Panic began to set in, a growing monster gnawing at our sanity. By nightfall, we were back at the campsite. As if mocking our plight, everything remained exactly as we left it. The rearranged logs, the half-burned log, even the chipped enamel mug Olivia dropped earlier. This time, Olivia, the ever-strong one, broke down, tears streaming down her face. Emily, her eyes wide with terror, whispered something about a time loop. The following days blurred into a grim tapestry of hunger, desperation, and fear. Days melted into nights, the campfire burning an eternal light on our deteriorating world. Mike, once the life of the party, became withdrawn, his eyes glazed with despair. Tom, always prepared, lost his last shred of composure, muttering about unseen forces manipulating us. Emily, the quiet observer, became a hollow shell, her gaze locked on some unseen horror in the darkness. One by one, they started disappearing. First, Mike. We found him near the fire pit, his eyes wide with terror, a single jagged scratch across his throat. Then, Tom. We discovered his body hanging from a low-hanging branch, a look of utter defeat etched on his face. Olivia, her eyes wild and pleading, vanished without a trace one morning. I was alone. Isolation became a terrifying companion, Hunger gnawed at my insides, exhaustion weighed heavily on my eyelids, but fear kept me awake. The forest seemed to pulsate with an unseen malice, the creaking of the trees a sinister chorus. On the night of the full moon, while scavenging for food, I stumbled upon a hidden crevice within the fire pit. Inside, nestled amongst ashes and charred wood, lay a weathered journal, its leather cover damp and cold. The faded writing spoke of a group of explorers who ventured into Howling Forest centuries ago, lured by a hidden lake. They too became trapped in a time loop, haunted by the spirits of the forest. The final entry spoke of a sacrifice, an offering of blood to appease the unseen entity. Despair threatened to consume me, but a flicker of defiance sparked within me. I wouldn't become another victim. The blood pounded in my ears, drowning out the rustling of the unseen creatures in the woods. Sacrifice. That single word hung in the air, heavy with dread. But a sacrifice of what? My blood? The thought made me gag. Then it hit me. It wasn't blood they wanted, it was the offering itself, the act of giving something up. With trembling hands, I rummaged through my backpack. The only thing of value left was the faded map, the very reason we were trapped in this hell. It was a desperate gamble, but it was all I had. Holding the map above the fire pit, I whispered a prayer I didn't know I still held within me. I give up the path, I declared, my voice hoarse. I give up finding the lake. Take this and let me go. A wave of nausea washed over me as I dropped the map into the heart of the fire. The flames roared, momentarily engulfing the clearing in a blinding orange glow. When the light subsided, an unsettling silence descended. The forest, which had always hummed with unseen life, seemed to hold its breath. Hours ticked by, agonizingly slow. Dawn brought an unwelcome light, but this time it wasn't mocking. The oppressive feeling that had hung over the clearing for days had lifted. The air felt lighter, somehow cleaner. With a tentative hope that clawed its way through the layers of fear, I started walking. The forest remained the same, yet different. The path ahead, though still obscured by the dense canopy, no longer seemed to shift and twist like a cruel joke. As I walked, a sense of direction, a faint memory, flickered in the back of my mind. I pushed on, fueled by a desperate hope. Hours later, just as doubt began to creep back in, the trees thinned, revealing a sight that brought tears to my eyes. There it was, a shimmering expanse of water reflecting the morning sky, the hidden lake. Relief washed over me, mingled with a bitter aftertaste of loss. Had it all been real, or a horrific nightmare? As I approached the water's edge, a glint of metal caught my eye. Partially submerged in the shallows was the compass I never thought I'd see again. The needle spun wildly, then with a click, locked in on a single direction, the way out. I left the lake behind without a backward glance. The journey out was long and arduous, but I faced it with a newfound determination. Days later, I stumbled out of the woods, a gaunt, haggard figure. The sight of the paved road, a symbol of civilization, brought forth a sob that tore through my chest. I was free. The news reported us missing, then presumed dead. They found the campsite, untouched, the fire still smoldering, a chilling testament to our ordeal. The map, however, was never recovered. Some say the forest consumed it. Others whisper of a shadowy hand reaching out from the flames, claiming its prize. The nightmares still come, vivid and terrifying. But with them comes a flicker of something else, a chilling understanding. The forest holds a secret, a dark and ancient power. And I, the lone survivor, forever bear its mark. I may have escaped the phantom campsite, but a part of me will forever remain trapped in the heart of Howling Forest, a silent offering to the unseen entity that holds dominion over those lost souls within. The Vanishing Hiker. The sun, a bruised orange through the dense canopy, cast an unsettling glow on the overgrown path. Sweat plastered my shirt to my back, and a symphony of unseen insects hummed in the humid air. I shouldn't have strayed from the marked trail. This detour, a barely there path snaking off the main route, had seemed like a good idea at the time. A shortcut, maybe, or a chance to see something new. Now, doubt gnawed at me like a persistent mosquito. The silence deepened, broken only by the crunch of damp leaves beneath my boots. The trees here were gnarled, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes that clawed at the sky. The air, thick with the scent of decaying vegetation, felt heavy, pressing down on me. A flicker of movement caught my eye. A deer, I thought, heart leaping into my throat. But what emerged from behind a particularly grotesque oak was no deer. It was a woman, her clothes ragged and mud-caked. Her hair, a tangled mess of straw, obscured most of her face. The only things truly visible were two eyes, impossibly black, that seemed to pierce through me. Before I could react, or even formulate a proper greeting, she spoke. Her voice, a guttural rasp, sent shivers down my spine. "Lost, are you?" she croaked. I managed a shaky nod. "Yeah, I took a wrong turn." She cackled, a sound like dead leaves skittering across a dusty floor. It stopped as abruptly as it began. "Lost? Or lured?" she rasped, her voice laced with something that chilled me to the bone. "Lured?" The implication hung heavy in the air. I stammered out a denial, a pathetic attempt to dispel the creeping fear. She just stared, that unnatural darkness in her eyes seeming to bore into my very soul. Suddenly, as quickly as she appeared, she vanished. One moment she was there, the next, the only evidence of her existence, the unsettling silence. I spun around, heart pounding in my ears, searching for any sign of her. There was nothing. The encounter left me shaken. Maybe it was just a crazy hermit, a figment of the oppressive atmosphere. But the memory of her eyes, those bottomless pits of blackness, lingered, a cold dread pooling in my gut. I decided to press on, hoping to find my way back to the main trail. The path narrowed, sunlight barely penetrating the thick undergrowth. The air grew colder, a damp chill seeping into my bones. Then I saw it. An old, dilapidated cabin nestled amongst the trees. Smoke curled from its chimney, a faint wisp against the darkening sky. As desperate for human contact as I was terrified of the unknown, I trudged towards it. An old man sat on the porch, rocking in a creaky chair. He was rail-thin, his face etched with 1,000 wrinkles, a scraggly beard framing sunken eyes. He looked up as I approached, those eyes mirroring the disturbing blackness of the woman's. "Lost, are you?" he echoed, his voice a dry rasp. Again, the same question. A shiver ran down my spine, but I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. He gestured vaguely to the empty rocking chair beside him. "Come, sit." My body screamed at me to run, but a morbid curiosity kept me rooted to the spot. I cautiously approached and lowered myself into the creaking chair. The man stared at me, his gaze unnervingly intense. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped finally, his voice barely audible over the rocking of the chair. "I know," I muttered, regretting my detour more than ever. "I took a wrong turn." "Some paths are meant to remain hidden," he croaked, his words laced with a cryptic warning. Suddenly, a sharp rapping sound pierced the stillness. It seemed to be coming from within the cabin. The old man's face contorted in fear. "Who's there?" he rasped, his voice a mere tremor. The rapping came again, louder this time. A cold dread washed over me. I didn't like this one bit. "Stay here," the old man whispered, his voice hoarse with fear. He rose from the chair with surprising agility for his age and disappeared inside the cabin. Curiosity, tinged with a healthy dose of fear, gnawed at me. I crept closer to the doorway, peering into the dark interior. A silhouette stood just inside the cabin, its back to me. It was tall and gaunt, its shape vaguely humanoid. It rapped again, its knuckles producing a dull thud against the weathered wood. The old man began to speak, his voice trembling, words mumbled in a language I didn't understand. Despite the terror gripping me, a horrifying fascination held me rooted to the spot. Then the silhouette spoke back. Its voice wasn't human, a guttural growl that vibrated through the floorboards, making me want to jam my fingers in my ears. The language was an unholy cacophony, filled with growls, clicks, and hisses that sent shivers down my spine. The old man whimpered. Then there was a sickening thud. A wave of nausea washed over me. I couldn't take it anymore. The primal urge to survive overpowered my morbid curiosity. I bolted from the porch, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I didn't look back, the screams of the old man echoing faintly behind me. The forest had become a labyrinth of shadows, every creaking branch, every rustling leaf taking on sinister meaning. I ran blindly, tripping over roots and fallen logs, lungs burning, heart threatening to explode from my chest. The oppressive darkness seemed to close in around me, the air thick with the stench of rotting vegetation and something else, something primal and foul. The forest itself seemed to be pushing back, branches whipping at my face, thorns tearing at my clothes. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the sound of running footsteps stopped. I stood there, gasping for breath, leaning against a giant oak. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic pounding of my own heart. Daylight had faded, replaced by the eerie glow of a gibbous moon filtering through the dense canopy. Lost, exhausted, and utterly terrified, I slumped down against the tree, tears stinging my eyes. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye in the distance. A pair of glowing red orbs like burning embers in the darkness stared back at me. Terror gripped me, my breath catching in my throat. The creature emerged from behind a twisted tree, its form vaguely humanoid but impossibly tall, its skin a mottled gray. Its eyes, those glowing red orbs, burned with an unholy light. It moved with a predatory grace, long, clawed fingers twitching with anticipation. Panic seized me. I scrambled to my feet, but my legs were leaden, betraying me at a time when I needed them most. The creature let out a sound that resembled a laugh, a chilling rasp that sent shivers down my spine. Just as it lunged, a guttural scream tore through the night. It wasn't a human scream, but it was enough to distract the creature. It turned its fiery gaze towards the source of the sound, its head tilting inquisitively. Taking advantage of the distraction, I turned and bolted. I didn't care where I was running, as long as it was away from that horrifying creature. The forest seemed endless, a maze of shadows and unseen dangers. I tripped and fell, scraping my hands on the rough bark of a fallen log. Gasping for breath, I looked around, disoriented. Through the tears blurring my vision, I spotted a faint light flickering in the distance. Hope surged through me, a lifeline in the black ocean of despair. I scrambled to my feet and stumbled towards it, ignoring the pain in my throbbing knees and burning lungs. The light grew brighter, revealing a small clearing. In the center stood another dilapidated cabin, smoke curling from its chimney. A woman stood on the porch, her back to me. Her ragged clothing and tangled hair looked familiar. Could it be the woman from earlier? A flicker of doubt crossed my mind, but my fear was too strong, my thirst for human contact too overwhelming. I called out to her, my voice hoarse with exhaustion. She turned slowly, revealing a face etched with deep lines, but lacking the unsettling darkness in her eyes. There was a weary kindness in their depths. Without a word, she gestured for me to come closer. Hesitantly, I approached the cabin. Reaching the porch, I collapsed onto the rough wooden steps, gasping for breath. The woman knelt before me, her gaze a mixture of concern and curiosity. "You're lost," she stated simply, her voice surprisingly soft. I nodded, unable to speak. She offered me a water skin, which I gulped down gratefully. The cool water revived me a little, giving me the strength to speak. I told her about my encounter with the old man, the creature, the fear that had been gnawing at me for hours. The woman listened intently to my frantic story, her brow furrowing with concern. When I finished, a heavy silence settled between us. "Those woods," she finally began, her voice low and grave, "hold memories best left forgotten." She explained that the forest was a place where time itself blurred, a tangled web spun from ancient magic that snagged unsuspecting souls. The old man, she revealed, was a guardian, tasked with remembering the true path and keeping that knowledge safe. His screams echoed in my mind, a stark reminder of his failure. The woman, she revealed, was another guardian, but one shrouded in a far more unsettling mystery. "I weave illusions," she explained, a predatory glint in her eyes that sent shivers down my spine, luring travelers in, not away. Terror replaced my initial fear of trickery. The path I strayed from likely led to safety, while this woman had drawn me deeper into the forest's decaying heart. "Why?" I croaked, the enormity of my situation finally sinking in. A chilling smile stretched across her face, a grotesque parody of human kindness. "We need new stories," she rasped, her voice morphing, a chilling counterpoint to the chirping of unseen insects. It became a chorus of whispers, a cacophony of forgotten languages and desperate pleas, all emanating from that single twisted mouth. My blood ran cold. Escape wasn't an option. This woman, or whatever she truly was, held me captive. The warmth from the staff I'd been clutching seemed to mock me now, a cruel promise of safety I never had. As dawn bled across the horizon, casting an eerie red glow on the skeletal trees, the woman, her form shifting, stretched out a gnarled claw. "Welcome," she hissed, her voice a chorus of whispers, "to your new role." The staff clattered to the ground, its warmth extinguished. The forest, no longer a place of shadows and whispers, pulsed with a malevolent energy. The gnarled branches that had previously brushed against me with menacing intent now reached out with purposeful malice, their skeletal fingers wrapping around my ankles, anchoring me to the spot. Panic clawed at my throat, but it was futile. I was trapped, forever bound to this dark entity, condemned to become a distorted reflection of the guardian I might have been. No longer would I guide lost souls back to safety. Instead, I would weave illusions of my own, luring them deeper into the heart of the forest, becoming another grotesque thread in the tangled web of forgotten memories. The chilling laughter that echoed through the trees was no longer a sound of the hunted, but a horrifying welcome to a fate far worse than death. A symphony of tormented voices joined in, a chorus of the countless souls who had become unwitting participants in the forest's twisted game. As the laughter faded and the whispers grew fainter, I felt my own identity begin to slip away. The memory of who I once was, the life I left behind, became as fragmented and lost as the broken sunlight filtering through the decaying canopy. I was no more. In my place stood a new horror, a chilling echo of humanity woven with the despair and madness of the forest itself. And so the cycle continued. the forest claiming another victim, adding its own dark twist to the tale of the vanishing hiker. The truth, buried beneath layers of illusion and forgotten memories, remained hidden, a grim reminder of the price one pays for straying from the well-worn path. The forest's silent watcher. The wind whispered secrets through the ancient oaks, their gnarled branches clawing at the bruised twilight sky. I adjusted the strap of my camera bag, inhaling the earthy, damp scent of the forest floor. Solitude. It was the reason I craved these trips, a chance to escape the city's relentless thrum and reconnect with nature. Today's target, Silent Vale, notorious for its haunting beauty and unsettling history. Legends spoke of a witch's coven banished centuries ago, leaving behind a legacy of unease. I scoffed, but a prickle danced at the back of my neck, a photographer's intuition, or perhaps the forest's mischievous spirit. Sunlight speared through the canopy, dappling the moss-covered ground. I snapped a shot of a fallen log, sunlight highlighting the vibrant green of creeping vines. A movement in the periphery caught my eye. A deer, I thought, disappointed. But something felt wrong. The deer hadn't startled, and the shadows seemed denser on its flank. I zoomed in on the picture, and a chill snaked down my spine. A face. Barely discernible, framed by darkness, a pair of glowing eyes stared back. My pulse quickened. Photo manipulation, a stray animal photobombing. But the intensity of the gaze, it felt deliberate. I spent the next few hours wandering, chasing fleeting shadows, and photographing the stark beauty of the forest. Every picture seemed to hold a hidden curiosity, a flicker of movement in the background, a shape contorted in the undergrowth. None were clear enough to be definitive, but a sense of unease grew with each click of the shutter. Frustrated, I decided to head back. Dusk painted the trees with shades of purple and indigo, and an unnatural silence settled over the forest. Just then, a twig snapped behind me. I whirled around, heart hammering against my ribs. Nothing. Suddenly, a woman materialized from behind a thicket. Her figure was shrouded in dark, tattered clothing, her face hidden beneath a tattered hood. Before I could react, she rasped out, "Leave!" Goosebumps erupted across my skin. "Who are you?" I managed to croak. Her voice was like dead leaves rustling on a cold wind. "This place holds shadows, not meant for your eyes." She vanished as abruptly as she'd appeared. I stood there, rooted to the spot, a cold dread gnawing at me. The woman's chilling words echoed in my mind. Was it a local, protecting some hidden preserve? Or something more sinister? Driven by a morbid curiosity, I decided to delve deeper. Ignoring the rising panic, I ventured off the path, following a barely there trail that seemed to beckon me. The trees thinned, and I stumbled into an abandoned clearing. A crumbling stone building stood at its center, overgrown with vines. As I approached, a crow cawed harshly, taking flight. Closer inspection revealed the building was once a church, its Gothic spires reaching skyward in a skeletal embrace. My camera instinctively rose to my eye. In the picture, a flicker of movement caught my eye, a hooded figure standing by a broken window. This time, the image was clear. The figure wore the same rags as the woman, but something was different. Its skin was an unnatural gray, its eyes hollow pits of black. A jolt of terror surged through me. I hadn't imagined it. What was this place, and what dark secrets did it hold? Panic clawed at my throat. I spun around, desperate to flee, but the way back seemed to have disappeared. Every direction looked identical. Trapped. As darkness enveloped the forest, chilling howls erupted from the surrounding woods. My breath hitched. Were they wolves? Or something else entirely? Suddenly, A flicker of light pierced the gloom. Through the broken window of the church, I saw a faint orange glow. Curiosity battling with fear, I cautiously approached. Peering inside, I saw a flickering fire casting dancing shadows on the crumbling walls. A figure huddled beside the fire, its back to me. My hand brushed the hilt of the pocket knife, always clipped to my belt. A meager comfort, nonetheless. Taking a deep breath, I called out, "Hello?" The figure remained still. I ventured closer, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke and something else, something rancid and foul. The figure shifted, and I held my breath. It was an old woman, her face a network of wrinkles, her eyes clouded with cataracts. Her gaze flicked towards me, a flicker of recognition in their depths. "You shouldn't be here," she rasped, her voice like dry leaves crunching underfoot. I got lost," I stammered. "Who are you?" Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. The woman spoke of a time long ago, of a settlement on the fringes of Silent Vale that thrived in harmony with nature. They worshipped a fertility goddess, their rituals performed within the very church I now stood in. But their peace was shattered by greed. A group of men, hungry for power, sought to exploit the forest's resources, stripping it bare. Their actions angered the goddess, who unleashed a curse upon them. The men were transformed into grotesque creatures, their humanity stripped away, left to wander the forest forever. The remaining villagers fled, leaving the cursed men and their haunting legacy behind. The old woman, she revealed, was the last descendant of those villagers. She had chosen to remain, vowing to guard the forest and prevent anyone from repeating the same mistakes. The hooded figures I'd seen, the cursed men, their presence was a constant reminder of the darkness that resided within the forest's heart. The fire crackled, casting the woman's face in an eerie orange glow. Her story chilled me to the core, explaining the unsettling presences I'd captured. But how did I fit into this? "Why warn me then?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. "You are an outsider," she said, her gaze locking onto mine. "But your pictures, they capture the shadows clinging to this place. They could expose the curse, warn others of the danger." A glimmer of hope flickered within me. Escape seemed secondary now. This was bigger than just getting out of the forest. With my photographs, I could be the link between the forgotten past and a potential future warning. "What can I do?" I asked, determination hardening in my voice. She smiled, a skeletal grin that sent shivers down my spine. "Show the world," she rasped. "Show them the consequences of greed, the lingering remnants of darkness. Let it serve as a lesson." Suddenly, a loud guttural growl tore through the silence. It came from outside, close. The old woman grabbed my hand, her touch icy cold. "They've sensed you," she hissed. "Go. Spread the truth. But remember—" Her voice dropped to a whisper, sending a tremor through me. "Don't let the shadows follow." Before I could ask what she meant, a deafening crash echoed from the broken window. Fear surged through me. I turned just as a clawed hand reached through the opening, followed by a hulking, grotesque figure. The old woman let go of my hand, pushing me towards the back of the church. "Go!" she screamed, defiance burning in her cloudy eyes. I didn't need telling twice. Adrenaline kicked in, fueling my escape. I scrambled through a hidden passageway she'd indicated, a cramped, cobweb-infested tunnel. I barely saw where I was going, pushing forward blindly, the growls of the creature growing louder behind me. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, my lungs burning, legs screaming in protest. Just when I felt like collapsing, a sliver of light appeared at the end. With a final burst of energy, I pushed through, tumbling out into the night. I found myself on a familiar path, moonlight slicing through the trees. Relief flooded me. I was out. But the old woman's words echoed in my head. Don't let the shadows follow. Fear turned my gaze back towards the forest. The darkness seemed thicker, heavier. As I watched, a pair of glowing eyes appeared within the dense foliage, followed by another and another. The sound of snapping twigs and rustling leaves confirmed my worst fear. I wasn't alone. Panic propelled me forward. I ran into the night, ignoring the ragged breaths escaping my tortured lungs, the pounding in my head. My only goal, reach my car and get out of there. It felt like an eternity before I stumbled upon the faint glow of the parking lot. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I fumbled with my keys, finally shoving the door open and collapsing into the driver's seat. As I screeched away, I glanced back through the rearview mirror. The forest had swallowed them back into its depths, the glowing eyes vanished. But a chill lingered in the air, a chilling reminder that the shadows might have retreated, but they hadn't truly left. I drove all night, the events of the night replaying in my mind. The old woman's story, the horrifying encounter with the cursed men, it was all surreal. Yet the photos in my camera confirmed it. It wasn't just a nightmare. Once I reached a safe distance, I pulled over, desperate to see the pictures again. Every image held a new meaning now. The flickering movement, the indistinct shapes, they were all a part of the story, irrefutable evidence of the darkness that resided within Silent Vale. The next few days were a blur. Sleep eluded me, replaced by vivid nightmares of the forest and the glowing eyes that watched me flee. But through the exhaustion and terror, a spark of determination grew. The old woman's words echoed in my mind. Show the world. Let it serve as a lesson. I couldn't ignore them. These weren't just photographs anymore. They were a key to a forgotten story, a warning whispered through the lens. I contacted a local historian, a woman named Dr. Evelyn Thorne, known for her research on the folklore and history of the surrounding area. Hesitantly, I poured out my experience, showing her the pictures. At first, Dr. Thorne was skeptical, but the raw terror in my voice and the undeniable detail in the photos stirred a flicker of fascination in her eyes. We spent hours poring over old maps and dusty archives. The stories matched the old woman's account. A settlement, a curse, a forgotten past. The photos became the missing piece, tangible proof of a legend whispered in hushed tones for generations. Dr. Thorne was cautious, but excited. This could be a groundbreaking discovery, a glimpse into a forgotten chapter of the region's history. We decided to collaborate, to present our findings to the public. The lecture hall buzzed with anticipation. Projecting the photos onto the screen, I narrated my nightmarish experience in Silent Vale. Dr. Thorne followed with historical context, her voice weaving a chilling tapestry of greed, punishment, and the lasting scars on the land. The photos were met with a stunned silence. Skepticism hung heavy in the air, but Dr. Thorne's reputation lent them credibility. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Was it real? Were they looking at actual proof of a curse? The lecture hall erupted in questions. Did I believe the old woman's story? Dr. Thorne urged caution, emphasizing the importance of further research and respecting the sanctity of the forest. The experience was surreal. A part of me craved validation, but another part recoiled from the spotlight. I was a photographer, not a crusader, but the seeds had been sown. The world now knew of Silent Vale's dark secret, its history intertwined with the gruesome consequences of unchecked greed. The media attention was overwhelming. My photographs became the focal point, dissected by experts and debated by conspiracy theorists. Some dismissed it as a clever hoax, while others saw a chilling truth. The most unsettling response came in the form of online threats. Anonymous messages warned me to stay away from the forest, claiming I'd stirred something that shouldn't be awakened. Despite the fear, I found myself drawn back to Silent Vale, not out of a thirst for adventure, but because a part of me felt connected to the old woman and her mission. Did she survive? Was she still guarding the forest's secrets? Months later, I returned, armed with Dr. Thorne's research and a renewed sense of purpose. This time, I wasn't alone. Dr. Thorne, captivated by the chance to explore the legend further, agreed to accompany me. We followed the old woman's instructions, finding the hidden passage within the crumbling church. The passage was narrower and more treacherous this time, a testament to the relentless passage of time. Inside, the air hung heavy with dust and decay. The fire was long gone, leaving behind a pile of cold ashes. Dr. Thorne gasped. On the wall, scrawled in charcoal, was a message. "They are restless," it read. "The hunger grows." A cold dread gripped me. Had I unleashed something worse by exposing the curse? Had the cursed men become bolder, hungrier? The silence pressed in, broken only by the dripping of water somewhere in the darkness. Then, a faint scratching sound reached our ears. It originated from deeper within the tunnel. We exchanged a terrified glance. Something was down there, aware of our presence. This time, curiosity wasn't enough. We scrambled back through the passage, adrenaline pumping through our veins. Just as we reached the entrance, a guttural roar echoed through the tunnel, followed by the sound of heavy steps. We didn't need to be told twice. We sprinted back towards the familiar path, the forest no longer a place of haunting beauty, but a terrifying maze. Nightfall was descending, cloaking the forest in an unsettling darkness. We ran until our lungs burned, collapsing onto the familiar path, gasping for breath. Had we outrun them? Or were they still out there, lurking in the shadows, content to watch us leave and wait for another unsuspecting visitor? We never returned to Silent Vale. The photos remained a testament to the chilling truth, a constant reminder of the darkness that hides within the beauty of nature, and the consequences it unleashes when disturbed. The experience forever altered me. Sleep became a battleground, haunted by the glowing eyes and the chilling echo of the old woman's final words. "Don't let the shadows follow." There were moments of normalcy. My work took off, fueled by the notoriety of photos. Yet, a nagging unease lingered. Streetlights seemed to flicker with a malevolent glint. The rustling of leaves in the wind sounded like approaching footsteps. One night, a frantic email arrived from Dr. Thorne. She had been digging deeper, deciphering cryptic texts discovered in the church archives. The message spoke of a ritual of appeasement, a way to placate the cursed men and potentially break the hold of the forest's darkness. But it required entering the heart of the curse, a place marked by a single withered oak. Terror warred with a strange sense of responsibility. The photos had brought the curse to light. Perhaps it was my duty to see it through. Dr. Thorne's email ended abruptly, the only further information a single sentence. "I'm heading back. Meet me there." Sleep was impossible. The pull of the forest, the weight of the unfinished story, it was all too much to ignore. Packing my camera bag this time felt less like artistic exploration and more like a solemn pilgrimage. The forest greeted me with an oppressive silence. Dr. Thorne's car sat abandoned near the entrance, its door ajar. Panic clawed at my throat. Following the scant clues in her email and the cryptic map from the archives, I ventured deeper, the shadows seeming denser, the air heavy with a cloying, unnatural sweetness. Then I saw it, A gnarled skeletal oak stood alone in a clearing, bathed in the sickly yellow of a half-moon. It pulsed with a faint, malevolent energy. As I approached, a low growl ripped through the silence, sending shivers down my spine. The cursed men emerged from the shadows, their eyes burning with a feral hunger. Fear threatened to paralyze me. But then I remembered Dr. Thorne. Clenching my jaw, I raised my camera, the flash illuminating the clearing for a split second. Perhaps it was the disruption, perhaps a remnant of the ritual, but the clearing bathed in a blinding white light. The ground trembled, and a bone-chilling shriek rose to the night sky. When the light faded, the clearing was empty. The withered oak stood silent, its malevolent energy dissipated. Exhausted and shaken, I searched for Dr. Thorne, but there was no sign of her. Had the ritual worked? Or had she become another victim of the forest's darkness? I left Silent Vale with a heavy heart. The photos remained, a stark reminder of the curse, but also a testament to the potential for change. The experience left me forever changed, a storyteller forever haunted by the shadows, forever vigilant, for the darkness doesn't always wait to be found. Sometimes it finds you. Years passed, and the Silent Vale incident became a faded memory, a chilling chapter I rarely spoke of. My life settled into a comfortable routine, photography exhibits, workshops, the quiet hum of recognition. However, the shadows never truly left. One rainy afternoon, a package arrived. A worn leather satchel addressed in Dr. Thorne's familiar, looping handwriting. My heart hammered in my chest as I tore it open. Inside, nestled amongst faded parchments and brittle maps, lay a single weathered photograph. It was an image I didn't recognize, the interior of the forest church bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. But the figure standing amidst the light was unmistakable. Dr. Thorne, her eyes filled with an otherworldly serenity. In her hand, she held a small, withered oak branch, its leaves faintly shimmering. On the back of the photo, scrawled in Dr. Thorne's hasty handwriting, was a single sentence. The ritual is complete. The forest sleeps. But remember, the shadows are always watching. A wave of emotions washed over me, relief, grief, and a chilling realization. Dr. Thorne hadn't been a victim. She'd completed the ritual, sacrificing herself to appease the cursed men and break the hold of the forest's darkness. The withered oak branch, a symbol of the curse's dormancy, sent a fresh jolt of fear through me. As I continued sifting through the satchel's contents, a folded paper revealed itself, its edges singed. It was a detailed account of the completed ritual, incantations, offerings, and a final, chilling directive. The Guardian's vigil continues. Should the shadows stir, the branch must be returned to the heart of the withered oak, under the light of the full moon. The weight of this responsibility settled heavily on my shoulders. Dr. Thorne had entrusted me with a sacred duty, a guardian's vigil against the potential reawakening of the curse. The photo of Dr. Thorne, bathed in the ethereal glow, became a constant reminder of her sacrifice and the delicate balance now in place. The years continued to tick by. Life moved forward, but the satchel remained a hidden treasure, a constant reminder of the darkness and the delicate peace that existed within Silent Vale. I continued my work, capturing beauty in the light, but always aware of the shadows that lurked beneath the surface. One night, as I sifted through old photographs, a tremor shook my studio. Panic surged through me, followed by a chilling recognition. It wasn't an earthquake, it was the same low, ominous growl that had echoed through the clearing years ago. My blood ran cold as I stared at the withered oak branch clutched in my hand. The fragile piece was broken. The shadows were stirring. Dr. Thorne's words echoed in my mind. The Guardian's vigil continues. Fear gnawed at me, but resolve hardened my heart. Picking up my camera bag and the satchel, I knew my life as I knew it was over. I was no longer just a photographer. I was a guardian, forever bound to Silent Vale and the chilling legacy it held. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the endless dark ribbon of road leading to Silent Vale. The leather satchel lay heavy beside me, the weight of its contents a constant reminder of the task ahead. Tonight was a full moon, and the shadows had returned. The forest loomed like a crouching beast, its silence oppressive despite the wind's mournful howl. Parking the car, I steeled myself. No turning back now. Dr. Thorne's image, serene and determined, flickered through my mind, a beacon of courage in the gathering darkness. Guided by faded maps and a flickering flashlight, I navigated the treacherous path towards the clearing. Memories of past encounters sent shivers down my spine, the rustling leaves whispering secrets in the night. Suddenly, a guttural growl ripped through the air, followed by the unmistakable stomping of heavy feet. Panic surged, but a deep breath brought clarity. I grabbed the withered oak branch, its touch cold and brittle. Pushing forward, I burst into the clearing. There, bathed in the spectral glow of the full moon, stood the gnarled oak, malevolent energy beginning to radiate once again. A hulking figure emerged from the darkness, a cursed man, his eyes blazing with a feral hunger, his body a grotesque parody of humanity. More figures materialized around him, a chilling chorus of growls echoing through the night. "Leave!" A raspy voice rasped from behind them. Emerging from the shadows was another figure, cloaked in darkness. Their face was hidden beneath a ragged hood, but a sense of familiarity washed over me. Was it the old woman, her spirit bound to guard the forest? The figures hesitated, growling in confusion. The hooded figure stepped forward, raising a hand. A wave of energy pulsed from them, momentarily stunning the cursed men. It was enough. Drawing on every ounce of courage, I sprinted towards the oak. Reaching it, I held the withered branch aloft, its dry leaves rustling faintly. As I placed it against the bark, a blinding white light erupted, engulfing the clearing. A deafening shriek pierced the air, followed by the sound of tearing fabric and splintering wood. The light subsided. The clearing was empty. The withered oak stood silent once more. The malevolent energy dissipated. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the damp ground. The hooded figure remained, their gaze upon me. Then, in a voice that echoed with the same rasp as the old woman, they spoke. "You have done well, Guardian," they whispered. "The forest sleeps once more. But remember, the shadows are patient. They never truly leave." As dawn painted the horizon with streaks of gold, the hooded figure vanished. I stood there, alone in the clearing, the silence heavy, but no longer oppressive. The weight of the past and the responsibility of the future settled upon me. Silent Vale held its secrets, its darkness contained, for now. But I knew this wasn't the end. I was the guardian, forever bound to this place, forever vigilant. My camera, once a tool to capture beauty, now served a different purpose, a chronicler of the darkness, a recorder of the fragile balance between light and shadow. As I turned to leave, I glanced back at the weathered oak. A single acorn, gleaming silver, lay nestled at its base. A flicker of hope sparked within me. Perhaps one day, a new life would rise from the ashes of the darkness, a testament to the delicate balance between light and shadow, between fear and courage. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button and bell. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments below. What story resonated most with you, and how did it make you feel?